Hello and welcome to Midlife Meltdown. I'm Ian and today I want to talk about how the film The Matrix is one of the best analogies of being in and exiting a narcissistic relationship. If you think that sounds a little crazy, bear with me to the end of this video and hopefully I'll be able to explain to you how some of the key scenes and dialogue within the film really help explain what a narcissistic relationship is and also talk you through the experience and how that parallels the scenes in the movie of exiting that narcissistic relationship and hopefully what we can all learn from it as well. But before I go any further, if you like what you see in these videos and you find them useful, then please help me grow this channel by subscribing to the channel, sharing it with others, leaving a like, and put any comments that you have in the comment section below. If there's questions that you have or things that you agree or disagree with, let me know and I'll respond to you. Now, I came to the realization of the parallels between the movie and my experience in a narcissistic relationship purely coincidentally by rewatching the movie that I hadn't seen in about 5 years. And as I was watching it, realizing that although there's a lot of deeper meaning within the movie than just the simple action movie it is, was just rewatching it after exiting that narcissistic relationship and coming through and realizing that some of the dialogue was really hitting me and was quite pertinent. And before I go through some of those scenes, let me caveat this heavily with, obviously, if you haven't seen the movie The Matrix, first of all, what have you been doing with your life? Stop this video, go and watch The Matrix before you continue anything. It's generally one of the most iconic movies of all time, well worth a watch. Now also, after thinking of the idea for this video, I did a quick search on YouTube and I do realize there's a video out there already comparing the two. I think the author is Kim Saeed. Now, Kim's video seems similar to the topics I'm going to discuss, but I think there are enough differences and a new perspective that I'm going to give in my video to warrant making a new video. And by no means is this intended to plagiarize that video. This was genuinely something I came to a realization of my own and thought would be an interesting topic to go through. For anyone going through a narcissistic relationship, I think there are some things that you can take some strength from watching that movie and listening to the dialogue. Now let's delve into what I think the parallels are between the movie and the experience of being in a narcissistic relationship. And I think there are 3, maybe 4 scenes within the movie, and particularly some of the key lines within those scenes that really mirror and explain on a very simple level what a narcissistic relationship is and what it's like to exit that relationship. And the first scene really is probably the most iconic scene of the movie, or at least one of the most memorable ones. And that's the classic scene where Neo meets Morpheus, the famous red and blue pill scene. Now, while I don't want to focus too much on the red and the blue pill because I don't think that's the real point, the dialogue behind that scene is extremely relevant to someone realizing that they're in a narcissistic relationship. Now, within that scene, Morpheus has a line of dialogue that says, "What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your whole life, felt like something is wrong with the world. You don't know what, but it's there like a splinter in your mind." Now that's really relevant to someone who's in a narcissistic relationship but hasn't quite come to the realization of what it is yet or doesn't know quite how bad it is. There's always an underlying current that you know that there's something not quite right, and people around you also know that there's something not quite right. But it's a small percentage of the time in a narcissistic relationship. A lot of the boundaries that have been put around you seem very normal. So 90% of the time it feels kind of like a normal loving relationship. And then there's little blips of things that just aren't right. But there's this constant undercurrent that you know there is something not right. There's a feeling within yourself, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And that's exactly what Morpheus is saying to Neo about the Matrix. He knows that there's something fundamentally wrong, but he just can't see what it is yet. And the second really poignant line in that scene is when Morpheus is explaining to Neo what the Matrix is in fairly vague terms. And he has a line something like, "The Matrix is the world that's been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. And that truth is that you're a slave kept inside a prison you can't smell, taste or touch, a prison of your mind." And that is exactly what effectively the narcissistic false self is. It's what the narcissistic relationship is. It's an environment that's been put around you to contain you, to imprison you, to be there for the narcissist. And it's exactly like the Matrix. It's a psychological prison that you're unaware of. And that really explains what a narcissistic relationship is and the feeling that someone goes through as they start to awaken to the realization that they're in a narcissistic relationship, but they don't know what it is yet. They don't know about narcissistic personality disorder, as I didn't, but they know that deep down something's wrong. And that definition of that psychological prison, the prison of the mind, is exactly what narcissistic personality disorder does within a relationship. It's a prison. Now, the second really relevant scene, I think, in the movie that really parallels the journey of discovery in a narcissistic relationship is the scene where Morpheus takes Neo into the construct to effectively show him what the Matrix is with his own eyes. Now, a really relevant piece of dialogue within this scene is when he's explaining to Neo what the Matrix is, and his words are, what is the Matrix? Control. And that really defines ultimately what the aim of a narcissistic relationship is. It's about control. It's about keeping a person exactly where the narcissist needs them for their own purposes. And that comes back to that psychological prison, the prison of the mind. It's ultimately narcissistic personality disorder, and narcissistic abuse is designed with the intent of controlling somebody. And it's a huge element of narcissistic personality disorder. Manipulation, control. It's about having people where they need to be for the narcissist to survive. And the second really, really important piece of dialogue within this scene is the line where Morpheus explicitly labels what the Matrix is. And the line's something like, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this, into a battery. And that is probably the most relevant definition of what narcissistic personality is and what it does. Ultimately, victims of narcissists are there as a fuel supply for the narcissist. That's the intention, that's what they're there for, and that's what they need. As I said in a previous video, narcissists have to feed from the energy from other people, the emotional energy from other people in order to be stable. Narcissist victims, their narcissistic supply, are ultimately just emotional fuel. Now, those two scenes for me really represent the initial stages of reclaiming yourself or reclaiming your life from a narcissistic relationship. It's knowing that there's something wrong, and it's going on the journey of discovery to find out what that is and being brave enough to find out what it is, to ultimately finding out exactly what that is and learning what narcissistic personality disorder is. And that's where the next scene or scenes I think that are really relevant come in. And that's really the scenes where Neo exits the Matrix physically, of knowing that something wrong is strong enough, then taking the red pill and discovering what that is and learning what it is the best way to start reclaiming your life. And the scene that best represents that for me within the movie is when Neo's physically unplugged from the Matrix, when he's almost physically reborn back into the new world. You see him literally ejected into the cold world, unable to survive, unable to swim, basically not having the strength or the skills to survive on his own because of the experience he's gone through. And then when taken back onto the ship, they're literally having to build him physically and mentally to cope. It's almost his first experience within the real world. And that for me felt very close to what it was like going through ending a narcissistic relationship. I'd spent so long in a relationship dependent, codependent with someone else, that getting back into the real world and just being me felt like a massive shock. It felt like I didn't have the skills. It felt like I didn't have the strength to do it. And that scene for me really hit home as to what it's like almost being ejected from a narcissistic relationship. Even though in my case, it was me that ended the relationship and effectively, I guess, did the discarding. You know, it's probably even more shocking if you're the one that's been discarded by the narcissist and it's come as a shock in that way to you. And the line I think really hits home after that is when Neo wakes up after the shock and talks to Morpheus, and he says, "I can't go back, can I?" To which Morpheus replies, "But if you could, would you really want to?" And that's a really interesting point, because like taking the red pill, once you learn what the truth of your relationship really is and you see it for what it really is, I don't think there's any going back, and I don't think you would want to go back. And that's a really relevant point, because if you look at the conditions that Neo finds himself in after learning the truth, it's very uncomfortable. It's harsh conditions, it's poor food, it's an uncomfortable bed, it's cold. Compared to the relative comfort of the Matrix that he was used to, it could be a very tempting choice to be plugged back in. But that talks to the point of, would you rather be free and have the truth, or be a prisoner and have comfort. And in my opinion, once you understand and once you see the reality of a narcissistic relationship, there is no choice. My life is far more difficult now than it was in the relationship. But I would never choose to go back into that relationship because there is no price to pay for the mental prison and the abuse I was going through. And in another scene in the movie, we see one of the other characters, Cypher, make the opposite decision and to go back and be plugged back into the matrix on the condition that he can forget. And this is really important because his line within that scene when he wants to be plugged back in is that he wants to remember nothing. And that he says that he's learned over 9 years that ignorance is bliss. And this is a really key point to take away from this, because once you've learned the truth about narcissistic relationships, there is no ignorance. You can't go back to that relationship and forget what you know about it. So going back to that relationship is likely to be worse than it was before, because you're going to be suffering the same fate, the same abuse, the same manipulation, but you're now going to know what it is. So in my opinion, there is only one path to choose, and that's the path of freedom. So in my opinion, there's only one path to choose, and that's the path of freedom and independence and ending the narcissistic relationship. Now, if you've stuck through to the end of this video, I hope you can see the parallels that I saw between the movie and the experience. It's been a long time since I saw the movie, and watching it after going through ending my relationship really hit me quite hard and gave the movie a whole different dimension. And if you've stuck through to the end of this video, I hope you found it useful, and I hope you can see the parallels as I do between the movie and the experience of going through a narcissistic relationship and hopefully exiting a narcissistic relationship. In my next video, I'll probably touch on the main differences I've seen in myself and my life after exiting that narcissistic relationship. So if you'd like to see that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. So thank you for watching, and the new video will be up within a week.